It's Garrett Williams season, baby.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Kind of a hodgepodge podcast today. Garrett Williams has been designated to return, open up that 21-day practice window, coming off a torn ACL last season while at Syracuse. What does it mean? What is his potential? What would it mean for the Arizona Cardinals if he could transition into that CB1 role? What do the Cardinals need to do to attack the Bengals, whether it be offensively or defensively? And is Josh Dobbs being used too much? Too many rush attempts, too many pass attempts. I'll discuss it as we kind of look at him as the real viable option for the Cardinals to win games moving forward until Kyler Murray comes back. It's a lot to discuss today. Crossover Thursday tomorrow with Jake Lisco and James Rapien from Locked On Bengals. And then I'll give my traditional Friday keys to success, etc., path to victory as the Cardinals welcome the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals in Week 5 to State Farm Stadium. Before we get into it, this is my PSA because we're here now. People always appreciate the first 4 weeks of the season and the last 4 weeks of the season. And then in the middle, it's just expected. Oh, we're going to have football every week forever. Appreciate every second of this. Every game the Cardinals play. They've been playing football for a month already. It's gone by like that. Appreciate it more and more as the season goes on. And not just get lost in the storylines, expecting football to be around forever. Because that's what our brain is tricked into thinking. Don't succumb to it. So Garrett Williams tearing his ACL last season while at Syracuse. Cardinals drafted him towards the top of the third round to potentially be the CB1 in waiting. The cornerback room has been one that's been forgotten for a large portion of the last decade. You had Patrick Peterson drafted in the top 10, obviously, 10, 12, 14 years ago at this point. He never really had a CB2 counterpart, aside from Antonio Cromartie for 1 year, I think. And the Cardinals since then never really addressed the depth in the cornerback room. Steve Keim, that was one of his biggest faults. And now, with Byron Murphy gone, with Marco Wilson thrust into CB2 action his rookie year when he wasn't necessarily ready, and now kind of like the de facto CB1. Passer rating is almost 100 when he's being targeted. Catrell Clark's 6th round pick came in, has shown flashes. His numbers aren't great. Christian Matthew, Antonio Hamilton. It's like the Cardinals have forgotten that the cornerback position exists for the better part of a decade. So Monty Osborne drafting Garrett Williams, who, I have a lot of smart friends, smart draft friends who were high on Garrett Williams. If he wouldn't have been injured, fringe first rounder, definitely a second rounder. He fell into the Cardinals' lap in the third round. And this could be just another Monty Ossenfort diamond in the rough. And it starts today. A little bit about Garrett Williams. If you haven't watched any film, just Google Garrett Williams highlights. Just watch some. The dude is special. He likes to hit people. Okay? He's a ball hawk. I love these cliches. I don't like the cliches like bell cow, gunslinger. Those make me want to throw up. But ball hawk, I love. It's badass. What even is a bell cow? Anyways. What even is a bell cow? Anyways. What? I'm just kidding. So Garrett Williams is a ball hawk. Okay. and he hits people really hard. And that's something that the Cardinals haven't really had. Even Patrick Peterson didn't like to hit people. He wasn't a Jalen Ramsey. And if the Cardinals can mold and coach Garrett Williams into a cornerback one, the Cardinals will be well ahead of the curve, because this was one. So all offseason, if this is your first listen of the Locked On Cardinals, thank you. If you've been listening all offseason, thank you. My biggest goal for the Cardinals in the 2023 season was to find stars on their roster. Find players that would keep them from having to draft those positions in the first, second, and third round of next year for need. So, like, say Garrett Williams comes in and the game's not too fast for him. He's ready to rock. He stays healthy, and he's going to be their CB1 moving forward. It's a big leap. Okay. Cornerback is probably the toughest position to play in football. But if that's the case where he can kind of move into that role, the Cardinals then can draft another corner for depth to build out the room, because they're going to have to draft a corner in the first 3 rounds of next year regardless. But if you already have one guy and you have Marco Wilson who could be your CB2 or CB3, and then you draft another corner in the top rounds, then you got something cooking. The Cardinals don't have cornerback talent. They just don't. And Garrett Williams coming in and catching up, learning, growing, getting better. That will be the biggest achievement for the Cardinals this year, is if they can get him rocking as CB1. Because then the 2023 NFL draft would have yielded a right tackle for now, a wide receiver 1 fringe, and a CB1 fringe in their first 3 rounds. BJ Ojulari gets back into shape after his injury. Cardinals could be cooking. But having a cornerback that you can trust to put on the opposing wide receiver 1 is something the Cardinals haven't had for a while. And if Garrett Williams can be that guy, it's going to be really good. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Please go to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, turn notifications on. Almost at 3,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who's supported the show, the podcast, argued with me, agreed with me. I love every second of it. And let's just have it continue. The Cardinals' best way to attack the Bengals, is it on the offensive side? Is it on the defensive side? I'll hit it next as we roll on. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny's picked out for us this week for this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Bengals running back Joe Mixon is off to a slow start with the rest of the team's offense as Joe Burrow's, he battles playing through his calf injury. With the receiving core shorthanded minus T. Higgins in Cincinnati in desperate need of a road victory at Arizona, look for the team to focus on winning with the rushing attack and defense. The Cardinals have allowed some ample production on the ground. Look for Mixon to get 80-plus yards and a touchdown. That's interesting as we pivot into the next segment. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. I'm Alex Clancy. That's me. I host the podcast. Garrett Williams is going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating. I've talked a lot about how, this season is going to be about like people's relationships watching the young players perform. And Michael Wilson balled out the last couple weeks. Joshua Dobbs has played great. Paris Johnson Jr. has played great. Control Clark has been fine for the younger guys. Zayvon Collins has been okay. We haven't heard much from him. He had a couple turnovers in the first couple weeks. We'll see. Kazir White has been great by all accounts. But, the cornerback position for the Cardinals is tough right now because the pass rush isn't really there. And the best friend of a cornerback is the pass rush. It makes quarterbacks get rid of the ball quicker, make mistakes, make cornerbacks' job more opportunistic. And that just hasn't really been there the last couple weeks. But we'll see what happens going into Sunday and what's the best way to attack the Cincinnati Bengals. And this may be the easiest answer I've had to give for any team up until this point when being presented with this question. And it's not hardcore analysis. It's nothing like that. Joe Burrow's hobbled. He's got the calf injury. There are people questioning whether he should be playing or not. I'm going to be asking Jake Liskow and James Rapine tomorrow of Locked On Bengals about that. Say this was week 14 and the Bengals were 11-2 and they had a 2-game lead in the AFC North. I'm assuming that Joe Burrow wouldn't be playing. I'm assuming he'd be rehabbing and healing up his calf. He's played bad football this year. Showed flashes with Jamar Chase last week, but all in all, it's been bad. T. Higgins is out. Vinny Iyer is saying that they're going to lean on the run with Joe Mixon. So the way to attack the Bengals, blitz and hope. Blitz and hope. This offensive line is hobbled. This offensive line, while improved roster name-wise on paper, has not proven to be so this year so far. So if the Cardinals want to cut the head off the snake, they've got to get after Joe Burrow. They've got to get after him. Make him leave the pocket. Frazzle him. Because when Joe Burrow is healthy, he's the coolest quarterback between the ears, not named Patrick Mahomes. That's what he's known for. It's Cool Joe. When he's injured, it's different. And this isn't saying, hey, yeah, go re-injure the injured player. No, come on. But if you're looking at what's happened with Cincinnati so far this season, the anchor is Joe Burrow's calf. It's keeping everything from moving. It keeps him like half-dimensional. It's not even one-dimensional. So when you have a situation like this, you've got to be able to maximize your leverage. And that leverage is getting after Joe Burrow. And it'll never be easier than Sunday. There was an honorable mention here. This is going to pivot into my next segment about Joshua Dobbs' usage. And if they're using him too much, I'll explain what I mean. I think the vertical game can be used more. Another way to attack the Bengals. The vertical game can be used more. Now, Josh Dobbs doesn't have the arm that Kyler Murray does with a great downfield ball, but we've seen him throw between intermediate and deep with great accuracy over the last couple of weeks. They've got very fast receivers. Greg Dortch is non-existent in this offense, which puzzles me a little bit. I guess that's probably because Rondell Moore's healthy and Michael Wilson's been playing so well. But taking shots down the field with Hollywood Brown and Rondell Moore, I think, is something that they need to infuse into this offense a little bit more. On first down, on second and short, things like that, especially if you've got momentum and you're running a little bit faster pace offense and you're keeping, the defense on the field. Taking shots down the field because they've got the weapons to do so, I think is a part of this offense that hasn't necessarily been unlocked yet that maybe should be if the Cardinals want to stay in contention on Sunday. This game, I think it's a 3.5-point line. The Cardinals are 3.5-point underdogs. The number is lowering. And it's probably, because Cincinnati's played so poorly and, because Joe Burrow's hurt, there's a lot of determining factors, but they need to just jailhouse blitz Joe Burrow a lot on Sunday and just come what may. Just come what may. The Cardinals have a lot of hard-hitting, fast defensive players. They've just got to get into Joe Burrow's kitchen, rattle him, force turnovers. And that's the best way to get him. And then, if you pepper in a couple deep shots, especially if they can connect on one, keeping the safeties honest is something that could really, really strengthen the Cardinals' hold on potentially getting a W on Sunday. What about Joshua Dobbs and how much he's being used? Is it too much? Let's hit it next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetterHelp. Okay. So I have been in therapy on and off for my entire life. Okay. And it's something that's massively benefited me. And, when I've been away from it, I could tell. And, let me ask, do you ever feel like your brain's getting in your own way? Like things you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it. Therapy helps with that. Helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. All you do is you fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Because getting in your own way is one of the things that many people deal with, and therapy can definitely help with that. So again, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Final segment, Alex Clancy. That's me. I'm so fascinated to see what's going to happen with the Cardinals on Sunday. Because, if it, going into the season, it's like, all right, well, loss. All right, well, loss with the Bengals coming into town. But now it's just so wild how, yes, the majority of what's happening in Cincinnati is because Joe Burrow's hurt. Jamar Chase isn't happy. T. Higgins is hurt. Joe Mixon's not played very well. But the Cardinals have an opportunity to get their second win of the year. They've played better than the Bengals have for a good portion of this season, which is wild. Is Joshua Dobbs being used too much? He's run the ball over 10 times the last 3 games. And this is, Joshua Dobbs isn't going to be the quarterback of the future. We don't think. I mean, who knows? But he threw the ball 41 times last week. And he ran the ball 10 times. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of usage. Sure, he's bigger. He can withstand a little bit more hurt, a little bit more hit, just bigger. And a lot of it was probably just game flow. James Conner was getting wrapped up by the 49ers defense. I tweeted out, the defensive game plan for the 49ers is don't let James Conner beat you. And they didn't. There's one thing that I do want to say. So is he being used too much? Joshua Dobbs with his legs and throwing the ball a lot. Maybe. We won't know until it's a trend. If he's running the ball 10, 12 times a game and they're design runs and he's throwing the ball 40 times a game, I'd lend to say yes. I mean, you've got guys. Use Rondale more. Use Hollywood Brown more around the line of scrimmage. And this is something, it's such a huge flip from what we've experienced the last couple seasons where all we saw was Rondale Moore around the line of scrimmage. And now you're kind of yearning for it where it's they're extended handoffs. Rondale Moore doesn't have to be in the backfield like he was that one time with the 40-plus yard touchdown run. But getting him involved creatively is something that Drew Petzing, we've seen him be able to do. And I feel like if they can integrate more fast players behind the line of scrimmage, not necessarily with them being run plays, to alleviate some stressors off Joshua Dobbs and keeping opposing defenses guessing, will benefit the Cardinals moving forward. That's not to take away what Joshua Dobbs has done. Well, he's done nothing but incredible since taking over, being a part of this organization for less than 2 months. Coming in, having control over the offense, I was definitely wrong. Obviously, I mean, if Clayton Tune was better than this, he'd be starting. I was wrong. But if the Cardinals are trying to truly win games, which I know they are, utilizing Joshua Dobbs maybe a little bit less and getting the ball in the hands of your true playmakers like Rondale Moore and Hollywood Brown Moore. I know that Hollywood Brown had 7 catches for, I think, 90 yards last week. So he's getting the looks. But that little extra wrinkle of, if it's not working with James Conner and Corey Clement or Keontae Ingram, whoever is in the backfield behind James Conner, getting the ball to guys like Rondale Moore, Greg Dortch, and Hollywood Brown will do nothing but benefit this offense moving forward. And I think it would also alleviate some stressors on Joshua Dobbs having to do a lot of the work on his own. Crossover Thursday, tomorrow, James Rapine and Jake Lisco. Super excited. Locked on Bengals. We'll talk to you tomorrow.